So the first of the two Rugby World Cup semi-finals is just around the corner. New Zealand taking on Argentina, a rematch of the Rugby Championship. But this game has a lot more on the line. The winner will make their way through to the final to take on the winner of England versus South Africa. But in this preview, we'll be looking through at these two sides, who they have selected for this contest, their previous fixtures, and then at the end a prediction of who we feel will be able to walk away with the victory. But we will start with the All Blacks. They did announce their side at 5 a.m. this morning. Not a huge amount of changes, going pretty similar to what they did have in that quarterfinal matchup up against the Irish. But in the front row, it is Ethan de Groot, Cody Taylor, and Tyrell Lomax. Now, Cody Taylor, he's actually found some very nice form throughout this Rugby World Cup. The last contest, I mentioned about it in the lineups video, making 14 from 14 tackles. He is definitely going to play a pivotal role in the All Blacks set piece throughout this semi-final. In the lock-in duo, they have made the change at number 4, going with Sam Whitelock ahead of Brodie Retallick, who does make his way off the bench instead. So still sticking with the same 3 locks, just giving a little bit of a rest to Retallick. For this game, number 5, they are stuck with Scott Barrett. He's been playing very well, although he was probably one of the players for the All Blacks that we didn't see a huge amount of in the game up against Ireland. I feel like he's a quiet workhorse. He'll get done what he needs to and then allow his brothers to have a bit more of the glory. In the loose forward trio, Shannon Frizzell starts at number 6. The leading tackler from the quarterfinals will be at number 7 with Sam Cane, also the captain for this contest. And then number 8, Ardie Savia, a man who played absolutely brilliantly up against Ireland. The same can be said about Sam Cane, though. Those two neck and neck in that challenge. And it will be intriguing to see which of those two get taken off the field for Dalton Papali'i in this upcoming game up against Argentina. In the back line, they have only made the one change compared to what they did have in their quarterfinal. Number 9 and 10 remaining the same. Aaron Smith starting at halfback, and number 10 being Richie Mo'unga out on the left wing. This is where the change is coming for the All Blacks. It will be Mark Talia in the starting side rather than Leicester Fainanuku. Now, Fainanuku doesn't actually find himself off the bench in this contest either. So I would say that this is Talia's trial to see whether or not he gets the chance in the final if the All Blacks do progress. As Fainanuku, he put in a decent showing up against Ireland. He's had better games throughout this Rugby World Cup. But after this contest, both of them would have played 3 games out on that left wing. So it may be a little bit easier to tell who they will be going with for the next match. Number 12, Jordie Barrett, and number 13, Rieko Ioane. Last week, the combination worked perfectly. Ioane playing his best game of this Rugby World Cup and debatably 2023. Number 14, Will Jordan, who always gives you a solid performance, scoring himself a try in that last contest. And then number 15, to close out the starting lineup, it will be Beauden Barrett, who had a better running game than we have seen throughout the last few games of the Rugby World Cup. So if he's able to do that up against Los Pumas, could be a very exciting contest for the Argentines, though. They have also made limited changes. In fact, only the one at halfback for this contest. Number 1, Thomas Gashon. Number 2, Julio Montoya, who will be the captain for this matchup. And number 3, Francisco Gomez Cordella. In the lock-in duo, it will be Guido Petti at 4, and number 5, Thomas Lavanini. Then in the loose forward trio, Juan Martin Gonzalez playing number 6. Now, it's actually where I've wanted to see him throughout this whole Rugby World Cup competition. I feel like him at 6, Matera at 8 was going to be an awesome combo that they could have looked at doing. Seeing as Juan Martin Gonzalez, I feel like he suits that blindside flanker rather than the number 8 jersey. He's now had that opportunity from that last game up against Wales and looking very strong in the process. Number 7, Marcos Kremer, and then number 8, the man who came in due to the injury of Pablo Matera. It is Fukando Eza, and he had a solid game up against Wales last week. We'll be looking to do the same here. As the Pumas, they are considered the heavy underdogs, but if they can cause the upset in this contest, they will make their way through to the final. Number 9, Gonzalo Bertrano, that is to replace Thomas Kubeli, who did play in the quarterfinal. Number 10, it is going to be Santiago Herreras once more. He is the man that they've stuck with a majority of this Rugby World Cup. The only change that we really saw at 10 was Nicolas Sanchez, although he still finds himself coming off the bench here. Number 11, Mateo Carreras, one of the few players who have got themselves a hat-trick throughout this Rugby World Cup competition. In the midfield, it is the informed Santiago Chochavarez, and number 12 and number 13, Lucio Cinti. Out on the right wing, an extremely important part of this Pumas team, Emiliano Boffelli, not just with that kicking tee, but also with what he offers throughout the rest of the game. And then number 15 to close out the side, it is Juan Cruz Malia. The man is brilliant in one-on-one defense. We'll have to use every inch of that throughout the semi-final fixture. But now looking through at the previous fixtures for these two sides. Now I will mention neither team undefeated at this stage of the Rugby World Cup. They have both tasted a loss, but from what we saw in 2019 when the Springboks were defeated, then went on to win the Rugby World Cup, it has shown that it doesn't matter what games you lose, as long as they're not playoff games. If you can get yourself the 3 wins, you do get to lift that World Cup. But looking at New Zealand's previous fixtures, their opening game of the Rugby World Cup was up against France. They were defeated 27 points to 13. It wasn't the start the All Blacks were after, but perhaps that was something that lit that little bit of a flame underneath them. The boot up the backside, is that too derogatory? A bit of an extra push that the All Blacks needed to do well in this World Cup. Their second game was up against Namibia. They were able to win it 71 points to 3. Their third contest was the highest scoring of the Rugby World Cup thus far, 96 points to 17 over the Italians, 113 points scored throughout the 80 minutes of rugby in that one. Then their next game was up against the Uruguayans. They did win it 73 points to 0. And then the most important game for the All Blacks throughout this Rugby World Cup campaign, their match last week, the quarterfinal up against Ireland. They did manage to win it 28 points to 24 after defending for over 30 phases. At the 80th minute, Sam Whitelock got the turnover and helped the All Blacks progress to the semi-final. For Argentina, they actually also started in a very similar fashion to what the All Blacks did. They were defeated in the opening contest for the Rugby World Cup. That was up against England, being beaten 27 points to 10. Now, theoretically, they are the only two sides that have already played that can meet each other in the Rugby World Cup or the third place playoff game. Because they are both from Pool D, it means there's still that possibility of a rematch somewhere along the lines. England were not able to score any tries in that contest, but did still win it by the 17 points. Their next game was up against Samoa, a close fixture, 19 points to 10 in favour of Los Pumas. They then had their victory over their South American rivals, 59 points to 5, the win over Chile. Their next game up against the Japanese, 39 points to 17. They won it by 12 points, and that margin is exactly what they won their quarterfinal by, 29 points to 17. So Argentina overall, minus that game up against the Chileans, have had extremely close fixtures throughout this Rugby World Cup. And I feel like this game up against the All Blacks, if Argentina can dig deep, play at 100%, this one also could be an extremely close one. But now we are up to that stage of the video where we try our best to predict who is going to be walking away with this victory. Now, New Zealand, they are on their 4-match winning streak. Argentina, they are in the same boat. Both teams winning 4 of their last 4. It's an extremely hard one to predict because the clear favourite is New Zealand. In terms of the betting odds, they are $1.07 favourites compared to Argentina, who come in as $7.50 underdogs, which, just to put that into perspective, is more than double what we saw as the biggest quarterfinal underdog, that being Fiji. They were only paying $3.10. But Argentina, in their game up against Wales, they actually came in as the $2.90 underdogs, and they were able to pull off the upset. In fact, 3 of the 4 underdogs in the quarterfinals pulled off the upset. So yes, the odds can paint a little bit of a picture, but it's until the two sides make their way out onto the field that we see a completely different story. For New Zealand, they'll be determined at the moment. Some felt that they were going to get knocked out in the quarterfinals last week, but they are still standing and they are more determined than they have ever been to lift their Rugby World Cup. It will be Ian Foster's last stint in the coaching department. He's still got 2 games remaining, no matter what. Whether that's this game and a third place playoff game, or this game and a Rugby World Cup final. For myself, I'm slightly stalling, I'll be honest. This is a hard game to predict, but for me, I am going to say New Zealand will be able to take it. I can see it being a relatively close game. From all the performances of Argentina throughout this Rugby World Cup, we know that when the game is close, they are able to stay in it right till the final moments. We saw that in their game up against Wales. They were actually down by a few points to come back and win that game by 12. It didn't feel like it quite represented what the game was played like, but it was that interception try of Nicolas Sanchez near the end of the game that helped Los Pumas get over the line. We should also mention, in recent times, Argentina have had the best record they ever have up against New Zealand, beating them in New Zealand, beating them in Australia. So we've seen this Argentine side do it before. Question is, in a World Cup semi-final, can they do it again? New Zealand though, I am going to back them. It's not because I'm from New Zealand, just from what we've seen in their recent games in terms of how clinical they have been with the selection that they've gone with. I feel like it is once again a very strong side. If they had made about 9 changes like they did throughout their group stages, I would say Argentina would have a lot better chance. But for this game, New Zealand, I am going to say they win it by 12 points. So similar to what we've seen Argentina actually have in their last 2 games, they have won them both by 12. I am saying this time New Zealand will win this game by 12, and I think they will win it 35 points to 23. So it's a relatively high scoring game. I feel like it will be quite free flowing at times, similar to what we saw when these two sides played in the Rugby Championship. But I am backing the All Blacks to be able to walk away with the victory, make their way on to face either South Africa or the English. But that is going to be the end of this preview, ladies and gentlemen. The match will be taking place at 8 a.m. New Zealand time on Saturday morning. So it's actually an earlier game than we saw for the 2 quarterfinals. It is taking place in less than 48 hours time. Should be an absolutely awesome game, and we will be covering it on the channel with the live commentary, so be sure to check that out as well. But thank you all very much for tuning in. Do let me know your score predictions in the comments down below, and I will see you all for the next one.